You okay there?
Jesus. I think I hurt someone.
This is Ed Warren, here with Lorraine. Alright, let's get started.
Based on a true story, the third Conjuring movie, but eighth in the overall franchise, focuses on a murder trial where the suspect was possessed by a demon at the time of the killing. It's up to Ed and Lorraine Warren to prove the possession in a court of law and prevent the suspect from being sent to prison or worse. As the eighth in the franchise, this Conjuring movie is awfully familiar. There are classic jump scares, horror tropes such as slow point of view shots, lightning storms, moody lighting and misdirections. These tropes are often tiring and dull, but they are presented in such a fun, energetic way that they work to a certain extent. There's little here that's truly original in terms of scares or horror, but they come together well to create a tense, sometimes scary film. On top of that, the cast and their characters are likeable and interesting. Ed and Lorraine are back. The film focuses in on them and explores their strengths and weaknesses, both as individuals and as a couple. A key part of the plot is that of Ed's failing heart, which serves both as a plot device but also as a point of emotion for these characters. Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga are great in the central roles, making them seem very believable and grounded, even if what they're saying and doing is often venturing into fantasy territory. The other characters are interesting, but they're also stereotypes. There's a creepy old man who may or may not be crazy. There's a cynical detective, a scruffy drunk, and of course the central villain, without spoiling it, is a very traditional bad guy designed to look and act in a sinister way. They all service the plot and interact with the central characters well, but there's little else that really defines them. The real shining element of this Conjuring movie is its attempt to try something different, while also trying to maintain what the franchise is. Yes, Ed and Lorraine are investigating possessions as per usual, but this film gives proceedings a new slant. They now must prove the existence of demons and prevent a young man from being punished for actions of the demon within him. It's an interesting idea and concept, but it also feels underutilized in certain ways. For example, the film barely touches upon the actual trial. It happens off screen for the most part. We don't get a sense of any evidence being provided or any debate or argument about the topic. Instead, the film focuses on Ed and Lorraine gathering evidence and connecting the dots like a demon-focused detective show. This isn't a bad thing, but it does mean that the film sometimes feels like two stories merged with one of them getting the more focus than the other. It's also a bit of a shame that the more traditional and familiar story, that of the investigation, is at the forefront, when the trial could have provided this franchise with something quite different with a bit more depth. In terms of how things play out and how the story progresses, there are attempts at twists and turns and surprises. However, none of these work as well as they should because so much of the story is familiar and as such predictable. The film lacks a great surprise or a shocking moments in terms of story, but also in relation to its horror. As the shortest of the Conjuring trilogy, but not the overall franchise, this entry does run at a brisk, energetic pace. When the horror lacks originality and the story is a bit predictable, the energy and fun factor, partly provided by the pacing but also the amount of levity, wins out. This is about as fun and enjoyable a horror film can get without straying too far from its classification as a horror. The Conjuring The Devil Made Me Do It is a very fun, entertaining and enjoyable film. Fans of the franchise will like this entry, although it may not be considered one of the best. It lacks originality, but the characters and story do make up for it by being likeable and interesting, and the fun energy provided by the pacing and the amount of levity makes it enjoyable despite its minor flaws. I liked this film, but I was not blown away by any single part of it.